Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Our reading this morning is from Pema Chodron, from a book called The Places That Scare You, a guide to fearlessness in difficult times. Once, a cook at Gampo Abbey was feeling very unhappy. Like most of us, she kept feeding the gloom with her actions and her thoughts. Hour by hour, her mood was getting darker. She decided to try to ventilate her escalating emotions by baking chocolate chip cookies. Her plan backfired, however. She burned them all to a crisp. At that point, rather than dump the burnt cookies in the garbage, she stuffed them into her pockets and her backpack, and she went out for a walk. She trudged down the dirt road, her head hanging down and her mind burning with resentment. She was saying to herself, "So where's all the beauty and magic I keep hearing about?" At that moment, she looked up. There, walking toward her, was a little fox. Her mind stopped, and she held her breath and watched. The fox sat down right in front of her, gazing up expectantly. She reached into her pockets and pulled out some cookies. The fox ate them and slowly trotted away. She told this story to all of us at the Abbey, saying, "I learned today that life is very precious. Even when we're determined to block the magic, it will get through and wake us up." That little fox taught me that no matter how shut down we get, we can always look outside our cocoon and connect with joy. We can always look outside our cocoon and connect with joy, says that cook from Gampo Abbey. Pema Chodron begins her telling of this story by reminding us that one of the mind-training mantras of Tibetan Buddhism is always maintain a joyful mind. Always? Have the Tibetan Buddhists seen the world news lately? Have they been to the grocery store or tried to get a job or helped anyone navigate the US healthcare system? And only a joyful mind? What does that even look like? The idea seems nice, but to engage it, we often have to fight through so many judgments born of believing in joy as a luxury and as a willful separation from the pain of the world. As a perpetually recovering perfectionist, eldest daughter, and person attempting to be taken seriously in the world, I will admit that considering joy in the midst of all the work that needs to be done has felt like a luxury meant for the unserious, the disconnected, the dreamers. Ross Gay meets my misperception head on in the first pages of his book, Inciting Joy. In one of his book talks, a professor asks Ross Gay, "With all of this going on," holding his hands up as if to imply war, famine, people all over the world in cages or concentration camps, some of them children, disease, sorrow, immense and imperturbable, it only getting worse and worse, dude had big hands. Why would you write about joy? The implication, Gay writes, is, of course, that joy doesn't have anything to do with what's in that guy's big hands, or even that the joy is the opposite of what's in there. Gay goes on to write, given that joy is often imagined as the result of some accomplishment or acquisition, something nice you get out there to do, something nice you get yourself, joy, the thinking goes, is the room at the top of the stairs that upon entering washes you with clean air and glad music and comfy furniture and gentle warmth emanating from the white pine floors, suffused with light pouring in the enormous windows with a sweet window seat where you can read a happy book. The joy room, the thinking goes, is snug with every good and nice and cozy thing. And two, this is very important. That sanctuary of joy has a strong lock. Think Tom and Jerry, 10 or 15 latches and deadbolts and chains for the rest, for when heartbreak gets loose and comes sniffing around the keyhole, throttling the door, trying to get in. Gay goes on to describe it as a kid's fantasy to actually imagine any emotion completely separate from another, but also a particularly dangerous fantasy to think of joy as meaning without pain or without sorrow, because it imagines that someone might actually be able to live without those things, which you only do if you have no relationships, love nothing, are a sociopath, or maybe if you've reached enlightenment. So why have we so effectively walled ourselves away from cultivating the joyful mind? Why do I roll my eyes when I read, always maintain a joyful mind? Well, wouldn't we want that for ourselves and each other if we could have it? What is wrong with us? Neuroscientists and evolutionary biologists, of course, have an answer. They will tell you that our survival-oriented brains develop to focus on three things: avoiding harm, approaching rewards, and attaching to others. When all of those needs are met, our brains can return to a state of rest, where we can repair ourselves and dwell in a sense of peace, happiness, and love. But we are thwarted by the fact that we have this wiring that has us continue to seek out sources of threat, work extra time to defend against them. We've reached a point in our existence where the more we imagine threats, the more defended we are, the more we imagine a next bigger threat, defend against it, and then become a threat to someone else, and on it goes. So I wonder now if what we need as a species is to recognize that the threat is no longer primarily from without, but from within. We can assemble and re-equip nuclear arsenals and try to outwit each other strategically, and all of that threat and anticipation isn't making us safer or affording us more well-being, because it seems it'll never be enough. So what if our safety, our survival, our next step as human beings is to bring together our sorrows and our fears, and instead of fortifying ourselves with higher walls and bigger guns, we found ways to connect our experiences of joy and of heartbreak. Early in my ministry, I got the chance to work and learn with the Reverend Kay Jorgensen, a Unitarian Universalist minister, and Carmen Barsotti, a Franciscan sister of Little Falls, Minnesota. They had just founded the Faithful Fools Street Ministry in San Francisco. Now, Kay had had many careers previous to becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister, one of which was as a professional clown. She came from Minnesota Lutheran stock, Norwegian flavor, so her alter ego was Asgard, who wore a rumpled fedora with a bright red flower in it, and a big dark brown wool blazer full of pockets. As the Faithful Fools Street Ministry took hold in the Tenderloin neighborhood in San Francisco, one of the ways they got to know the residents there was to send Asgard out on a ramble. Wordlessly, Asgard would stand in one spot for a while, looking around, making eye contact with passersby, or the leaners on the side of buildings. And when the time was right, he would reach into his pocket, grab a piece of chalk, and begin to trace the outline of a foot on the sidewalk in front of him. Once that foot was drawn, he would take his foot and place it in. And then he would bend and draw another foot, painstakingly slowly making his way down the sidewalk, only moving his foot once a chalk foot had been drawn. Busy city walkers on their way someplace important to do something significant would shake their heads as if they even bothered to notice. Usually he was just in the way. Some people, though, paused, smiled, asked what he was doing. And when they did, Oscard would wordlessly draw a foot next to his foot and invite them to step in. And if they stepped into that foot, they were given a piece of chalk to draw their own next step. Pretty soon, there would be 3 or 4 people making that same painstaking walk, chuckling at themselves and each other, making connections, though they were from completely different walks of life. They were invited to connect, to slow down, to savor each step. Now, those people who joined Oscard were doctors and nurses, tech workers, unhoused people, addicts, and clergy. Sometimes they were laughing giddily at their own ridiculousness. Sometimes they were just enjoying that newfound communion, letting go of those other identities for a moment in exchange for this fleeting fellowship of joy. Here at Arlington Street Church, I feel the echoes of that as Queen Cheryl sets up her bubble machine and pulls out the cart of rubber duckies every morning, every Sunday. Passersby are confused, delighted, sometimes defended, but always intrigued by this interruption of the norm for a little spot of joy. Oscard's steps, Queen Cheryl's rubber duckies, could be dismissed as sheer silliness, distractions from our important work of social justice and climate action and global peace building. But I think they're exactly what we need to sustain us and to keep us all in that deep work of being honest and being human. Psychologist Rick Hansen describes the practice of trying to dwell in the place where our brains are at rest from defense and fear as deepening the keel of a boat, making it more seaworthy, especially in choppy waters. He recommends a practice of noticing upon waking all the things that are right with our body, the space we inhabit, the people we hold dear, the weather outside, as a simple way to tune ourselves to the channel of joy to help us get through the day. We know the channels in our brains that tune to danger and worry are not at risk of tuning out or turning off. Can I get an amen? They will keep doing their thing, and they should. But making sure the signal strength on that joy channel is clear opens us up to reservoirs of connection and strength and courage that we can't find anywhere else. Ross Gay, again, shares what he calls his hunch, that joy is an ember for or a precursor to wild and unpredictable and transgressive and unboundaried solidarity, and that solidarity incites further joy, which might incite further solidarity, and so on. My hunch, he continues, is that joy emerging from our common sorrow, which does not mean we have the same sorrows, but that we, in common sorrow, might draw us together. It might depolarize and deatomize us enough that we consider what, in common, we love. And though attending to what we hate in common is too often all the rage, and happens to be very big business, noticing what we love in common and studying that might help us survive. It's why I think of joy, which gets us to love, as being a practice of survival. So when we draw together in this community to celebrate our joys and comfort one another in our sorrows, we are practicing just that survival. And often when we find we are sharing the stories of beloved ones we have lost, laughter and joy follow from conjuring the memory of their presence among us, remembering the love we share in common. And when we come together in our fear and worry, as you're invited to do through election season and a whole series of events, we can bring together our creative powers, our compassion, and our curiosity about how else the world could look if we dare to let down our defenses, if we dare to name what is most precious to us and dwell in the love that it brings. So as we move into these weeks of fever pitch of presidential election, escalating wars, the slings and arrows of climate crisis, let's remember to stop and notice the fox's gaze, to hold on to our rubber ducky, to take a moment to gasp at the splendor of the fall colors and the human presences that we are so grateful to have with us. Let the invitation of the smallest joys give us relief, hope, and space to fill our wells, to deepen our ballast so that we don't lose our balance in the coming waves. Let us turn to each other to share sorrow as we watch it grow into joy in the sharing of the burden, in the making of a new story. If we can't always maintain a joyful mind, let's practice reaching for the joyful mind with peace, with kindness, and in community. May it be so. Amen. May we remember that we are a delight and we can be one another's blessing by sharing our sorrow and claiming our joy. Let's go out with joy and be led back in peace this day and every day. The service begins, my friends, when the service ends. Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.